Beijing doesn't trust Lai Ching-te, doesn't trust Hou Youyi, doesn't trust Ko Wen-je. They don't trust. I think they feel that they've already lost public opinion in Taiwan. But I think Xi Jinping is pretty smart. And I also think that Xi Jinping has pretty good information. He knows what happened in Ukraine. He knows what the corruption inside the Chinese military. He knows the strength of the American military. I don't know how happy we're going to be after Xi Jinping or after the Chinese Communist Party, because it could be a very bad scene.
Andy，我知道您中文非常好，但是我还是想用英文跟您访问。
对，我们大概用英文可能能够有更多的内容。
好。So, Professor Nathan, I'll call you Andy.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the time. You have been an iconic figure in the China study field.
Thank you, 不敢当。
You're on the list of a must talk to person. You studied China for over 53 years. I want to put some questions into the context, but let's start from the most recent. And anytime we can go back to the history, or please just elaborate to the general Chinese audience. We can bear some of the political science theories or ideas in mind, but I hope that more Chinese people can listen to what you say, because you're such an important voice. But maybe in Chinese context, in Chinese content, there are not many people, who are familiar with your theories or studies. So let's start by some small talk, not really small talk. I believe there are news you are following. How about Taiwan elections, the results of the Taiwan election, and also the recent, the passing of Premier Li Keqiang. There's a big, noise in the Chinese public sphere, talk about what a leadership this country really needs. And there are other news. So U.S.-China relations. So any news that really catch your attention, and what's your recent study topic?
Oh, well, yeah, all those topics are very important. I mean, I think that the election of Lai Ching-te, and by the way, Lai Ching-te's vice presidential candidate, Bi Kim Xiao, is a Columbia graduate. She was my advisee when she was an MA student at Columbia. I think they will stick to the Tsai Ing-wen line and not and just try to maintain the status quo without pushing the way that Chen Shui-bian did in the direction of more independence. But I think that Beijing doesn't trust Lai Ching-te, doesn't trust Hou Youyi, doesn't trust Ko Wen-je. They don't trust. I think they feel that they've already lost public opinion in Taiwan. They used to say that we rely on the Taiwan people to unify, but now they think they've lost that. Taiwanese identity is so firm. But they will, so Beijing is going to increase pressure, I think, economic, diplomatic, military. But I don't think Xi Jinping wants to launch a war. I think he's not ready. I think he would do it when he's ready, but he's not ready yet. So I'm hopeful that the cross-strait situation can stay stable as long as the United States doesn't do something to create a crisis. And that depends on our presidential election.
Yes.
Because I think if Trump is elected, it's very unpredictable what Trump may do. But one of the things he might do, because a lot of the people around Trump are very, very anti-CCP, Trump might respond to that part of his advisors and his base by doing something that would push forward Taiwan independence, a military treaty, or I don't know exactly what, some step that would force Xi Jinping to use military force. So I just hope that that doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, I'm optimistic that the status quo, which is very stressful already, can be continued. some people say, how long can that continue? And I really don't know. I think it's not a very stable status quo. That China doesn't like it. The power balance is constantly shifting, so it can't last forever. But I really don't know how long it's going to last. That's things in international politics are often like this. Nothing lasts forever, but we hope that the worst things don't happen, and sometimes the worst things do happen, as we've seen in Ukraine, as we've seen in Israel and Gaza.
There are so many questions. As a follow-up questions, allow me to break down one to another. So first you say, yeah, we see there's a transition, power transition between Tsai Ing-wen and Lai Ching-te. And of course, Lai Ching-te has been stating that he want to maintain the line Tsai Ing-wen has set down. But in the recent 2 days, I just did a program yesterday. I recapped the whole international reactions. One new reaction is, the whole Western world has expressed their, congratulations to President Lai Ching-te in a very, very upfront attitude. And of course, Beijing government is extremely angry. They send objection to everybody. So it looks like China is creating a diversity enemy, atmosphere, global-wide. But will this become like a real tension to increase this already stressed tension, or you think it's still just back and forth on the words level? You think?
I think it's back and forth on the word level. I think that for Western countries to congratulate somebody who gets elected is very standard. It doesn't move, I think what Beijing is especially concerned is to not allow the existing Taiwanese autonomy, the fact that Taiwan is a separate political unit, not to allow that to be expanded or consolidated or pushed forward, like when Chen Shui-bian was president and he did referenda. Or when Li Denghui was president and he said, what did he say, the Liang Guo Lun. These were things that sort of changed the status quo a little bit in the direction of declaring independence. And I think congratulating somebody who wins an election doesn't change the status quo. And then I think Beijing always repeats their point of view. There is only one China. Taiwan is a, so that's pretty standard. That's just words. But I do think that Beijing feels that what I said before, that they can no longer make the people in Taiwan voluntarily subject themselves to the CCP. So they're going to have to use pressure.
Yes.
So like putting a stop to the favorable trade relations, getting Nauru to change diplomatic relations, flying more airplanes across the median line, all of those kind of things, increasing pressure, but not because somebody congratulated Lai Ching-te, but because the situation in Taiwan in general, whether Lai Ching-te, Hou Yu-ih, Ko Wen-je, that situation, because really the difference among those three candidates, Lai, Hou, Ke, about mainland policy is there's not much different.
Yes.
Yeah, they both say, oh, we should talk to the mainland. We should protect the interests of Taiwan. So what's the difference? So I think that had Hou Yu-ih been elected, China would still be ramping up pressure. They would say, you got to recognize the 92 consensus, but he would not have been able to do so, and so on. So I think it's the basic ongoing consolidation of Taiwan's democracy that Beijing and of Taiwanese identity. That's what Beijing is reacting to.
But that's exactly what I want to say. It's like the consolidation of Taiwan democracy, and also like Taiwan's image as a country of democracy. And second is like, if you talk to all young Taiwanese, don't talk to old Kuomintang generation.
Yeah.
All the Taiwanese, they say we are Taiwanese.
Yeah.
They even won't say we are Chinese, we are Huaxia Tongbao, we are Zhongguo Tongbao. You know, those concepts were more like a misperception still shared by most of the Chinese people, even though this is a Shanghai Ganqing, psychologically hurtful to think, but that's a reality. So these are two things that it's already a status quo. It's a reality.
Yeah.
But then it's about it's CCP's face issue, or it's something they really care about, and she personally think there's something unbearable and push him to the war. And then there's follow-up question, like if these two realities are already there, this is something Taiwan won't change no matter which leader is there, and they will never change because it's already the fact. Then the question will be, if there's a war, of course nobody wants to see a war, but somebody do want to see the war. A lot of Chinese, more liberal-minded or more radical people will say, oh, if there's a war, that least will be like a breakdown of this status quo, and there will be a chance for change. So how do you react to those? One is like if there's a reality that CCP hates, they will react to, but there's no chance to change it from both sides. Will such as escalations of anger come to a point to become a war? And second question is like, where is there more chance to, if a war is a solution, or a war is the starter of another disaster
For China.
For China and the world, or
And you say that some liberal people in China think a war would cause a change inside the Chinese political system.
yes, there are a lot of people wait because the follow-up question is the desperation, the frustration among reformers.
Yeah.
Will say if there's no chance for CCP, for Xi Jinping to make changes to their political structure, there's no opposite party. So where's the chance for change? Maybe a war. A war could be suicidal, but then at least it's a chance for change.
Okay, there's a lot in there. So first of all, I don't think the Taiwan issue is an issue of face for China. It's a strategic issue.
Okay.
It's about the first island chain. It's about this huge Chinese navy that is stuck in the South China Sea and East China Sea. And in order to go to the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, it needs to get out through the first island chain. And when the Chinese government says, why are the Americans controlling the first island chain? The United States is 10,000 miles away. That makes sense to me. I understand that that is a great power. China needs to control its access to the ocean and its immediate neighborhood. So it's not just about face. Secondly, we don't know for sure, but I think Xi Jinping is pretty smart. And I also think that Xi Jinping has pretty good information. He knows what happened in Ukraine. He knows what the corruption inside the Chinese military. He knows the strength of the American military. So if Xi Jinping is smart and has good information, then he knows that if he now launches a war, he's going to lose.
Okay.
He knows that.
That's your basis. That's the basis for your assumption that he doesn't want to start a war because he knows that he's not ready.
It's not ready.
Okay.
But he wants to get ready.
Okay.
He wants his forces to be ready, and he's waiting for the United States to decline, because I think he does believe that the United States is a mess.
He believes.
He believes it, and I believe it too. The United States is a mess. You look at our presidential election. So I mean, of course, it's not that simple, because Xi Jinping's economy has trouble, his military has trouble, and so forth. But it's reasonable. I don't know the future, but it's reasonable to think that Chinese power will increase. It has been increasing, and that American power will, especially if we elect Trump, will suffer. So there's an article today in Foreign Affairs website about the fact that the United States cannot, according to these people, maintain what's called military primacy in Asia. And it has to accept the fact that it's a military balance between China and the United States. So, you know, Foreign Affairs magazine has an article that says this, so it's okay if Xi Jinping believes the same thing. But however, I don't think he has given up on winning peacefully, because China's very big, Taiwan is very small. The United States is far away, China is very close. The Taiwan economy depends a lot on the mainland economy, and so on and so forth. So Xi Jinping has some leverage.
Yeah.
And he's going to try to work that leverage and make the Taiwanese surrender, not that they want to, but that they have to. On the third point that you made about if there were a war, would it trigger a change in China? I guess it would, but what happens after, let's say, if you say after Xi Jinping or after the Chinese Communist Party, what happens? I cannot quite figure it out. There isn't the regime has prevented any other political force from coming into existence.
Yeah.
The only other political force would be some faction in the Communist Party or in the Chinese military, but we don't know who they are, because they don't, you know, they don't manifest themselves. We don't know who they are or whether they exist. I mean, we could probably make the rational assumption that there must be, the Communist Party is 96 million or something people,
Yeah.
you know, so they can't all think exactly the same thing.
Yes.
But is there a more aggressive faction, a more leftist faction? Is there a liberal faction? How liberal is the liberal faction? How liberal was Zhao Ziyang, really? Did Zhao Ziyang want 多党制? Did Zhao, you know, no.
He still want to do the internal
He wanted a communist party that was more open, but still one party. So, you know, I don't know how happy we're going to be after Xi Jinping or after the Chinese Communist Party, because it could be a very bad scene.